Welcome back to my channel Learning English Level 3. I'm very happy to see you here today. In this video, we will learn the life story of Nelson Mandela. His story will inspire you to stay strong in hard times. It will teach you patience, courage, and hope. This video will also help you improve your English listening skills. So listen carefully and enjoy every word. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to me and helps this channel grow. Now let us begin this powerful journey. Early life of Nelson Mandela. The early life of Nelson Mandela was simple, humble, and deeply meaningful. He was born on July 18, 1918, in a small village called Mvizo in South Africa. His birth name was Rolihlahla Mandela. In his local language, this name means pulling the branch of a tree. It also means troublemaker. This name later felt very true to his life. Nelson Mandela was born into a royal family of the Thembu tribe. His father was a respected leader and advisor to the king. Even though his family had status, they lived a simple village life. They did not have electricity or modern comforts. They lived close to nature. They respected traditions and community values. As a child, Nelson Mandela spent much of his time outdoors. He looked after cattle with other boys. He learned discipline and responsibility at a young age. He also learned the importance of sharing and teamwork. These lessons stayed with him for life. Storytelling played a big role in his childhood. Elders often shared stories around the fire. These stories were about brave African leaders. They spoke of resistance and justice. Young Nelson listened carefully. These stories shaped his dreams and beliefs. When Nelson Mandela was about 9 years old, his father passed away. This was a very difficult time for him. After his father's death, he was taken to live with the Thembu king. This changed his life forever. He was now exposed to leadership and decision-making. He watched how leaders discussed problems and solved them peacefully. Nelson Mandela attended a local school. This is where he was given the English name, Nelson. At that time, many African children were given English names by teachers. He was a good student and enjoyed learning. Education gave him confidence. It also opened his mind to the world beyond his village. Even as a young boy, Nelson Mandela noticed unfair treatment. Black people had fewer rights. They were often disrespected and controlled. This made him feel sad and confused. He began to question why some people had power and others did not. The values he learned in childhood stayed with him forever. He learned respect from his elders. He learned courage from village stories. He learned leadership by watching the king. And he learned hope through education. Nelson Mandela's early life was not easy, but it was full of lessons. It built the foundation of a strong leader. A leader who would later change the world. Childhood and family background. Childhood and family background. The childhood and family background of Nelson Mandela played a very important role in shaping his character. He was born into the Thembu royal family in South Africa. His family belonged to the Madiba clan. This clan was respected and honored in their community. Even though his family had royal roots, their life was simple and disciplined. Nelson Mandela's father was named Gadla Henry Mfakaniiswa. He was a chief and a trusted advisor to the Thembu king. His father was known for his honesty and courage. He always stood for truth, even when it was risky. Because of this, his father lost his position as a chief. This taught young Nelson an important lesson. He learned that standing for what is right can be costly, but it is still worth doing. His mother was Nosekini Fanny. She was kind, patient, and deeply religious. She taught Nelson values like respect, humility, and care for others. She believed in hard work and strong morals. Her quiet strength influenced him deeply. From her he learned self-control and inner peace. Nelson Mandela grew up in a close-knit family environment. Family bonds were strong. Elders were respected. Children were taught to listen more than they spoke. Everyone shared food and responsibilities. This sense of community stayed with him for life. As a young boy, Nelson lived a traditional village life. He slept in a simple hut. He ate basic food. He walked long distances barefoot. He played traditional games with other children. He also helped with daily chores. These experiences made him strong and independent. When Nelson was only 9 years old, his father died. This was a painful moment in his childhood. His family life changed suddenly. After his father's death, the Thembu king took responsibility for him. Nelson moved to the king's home. This was a big change from village life. Living with the king exposed Nelson to leadership. He saw how leaders listened to people. He watched how problems were discussed calmly. Decisions were made after careful thought. This taught him patience and fairness. It also gave him confidence to speak and think like a leader. His childhood was not filled with wealth, but it was rich in values. He learned discipline from tradition. He learned courage from his father's example. He learned kindness from his mother. He learned leadership from the royal household. Nelson Mandela's family background gave him strong roots. These roots helped him stand tall in difficult times. They shaped the man he would become. A man who believed in dignity, justice, and unity. Education and love for learning. Education played a powerful role in the life of Nelson Mandela. From a young age, he believed that learning could change a person's life. He also believed education could change a nation. This belief stayed with him until his last days. Nelson Mandela began his education in a small local school near his village. The classrooms were simple. The resources were limited. But his curiosity was strong. He listened carefully to his teachers. He enjoyed reading and learning new ideas. At school, he was given the English name, Nelson. This was common at that time in South Africa. As he grew older, his love for learning grew deeper. He saw education as a path to freedom. He understood that knowledge gives power, helps people think clearly, helps them question injustice, helps them speak with confidence. After finishing basic schooling, Nelson Mandela went to a boarding school. This was a big step in his life. He met students from different backgrounds. He learned discipline and responsibility. He also learned to live independently. These years helped him mature quickly. Later, he joined Fort Hare University. This was one of the few universities for black students at that time. Here, his mind opened even more. He learned about politics, law, and leadership. He also learned about unfair systems in society. At university, he began to think deeply about freedom and equality. Nelson Mandela was not only a student. He was also a thinker. He questioned rules that were unfair. He spoke up when he saw injustice. Because of this, he faced trouble. He was expelled from university for protesting against unfair treatment. This was a painful moment. But he did not stop learning. Later, he continued his studies in law. He believed law was a tool to fight injustice. He wanted to protect people who had no voice. Studying law was not easy. He faced financial problems. He faced discrimination. But he remained focused. Even when life became very difficult, he never gave up on education. When he was sent to prison, he continued to learn. He read books. He studied history and politics. He even helped other prisoners learn. Prison could lock his body, but it could not lock his mind. Nelson Mandela believed education builds character, teaches patience, teaches understanding, teaches respect for others. He once said education is the most powerful weapon. With it you can change the world. His love for learning shaped his leadership. It helped him stay calm in anger. It helped him choose peace over revenge. It helped him lead with wisdom. Nelson Mandela's journey shows us something important. No matter where you start, education can lift you. If you love learning and stay determined, your future can change. Discovering injustice and racism. As Nelson Mandela grew older, he slowly began to understand the harsh reality around him. As a child, life in the village felt equal. People shared food and work. Everyone was treated with respect. But when he left his village, everything changed. When Nelson Mandela moved to towns and cities, he saw injustice clearly. Black people were treated as second-class citizens. They were told where to live. They were told where to work. They were told where they could walk. White people had power. Black people had very few rights. This unfair system was called apartheid. Apartheid meant separation. It divided people by skin color, controlled every part of life. Schools were unequal. Jobs were unequal. Even public places were unequal. Nelson Mandela felt deep pain when he saw this. He saw black families living in poor areas. He saw them working long hours for low pay. He saw them treated with disrespect every day. This made him angry. But his anger was calm and thoughtful. He wanted change, not chaos. At school and university, he learned more about injustice. He read books about freedom and human rights. He learned about leaders who stood against oppression. These ideas shaped his thinking. He began to understand that racism was not natural. It was created by people. And anything created by people could be changed. Nelson Mandela also experienced racism personally. He was judged by his skin color. He was denied opportunities. He was treated unfairly by authorities. These experiences hurt him deeply. But they also made him stronger. Instead of feeling hopeless, he felt determined. He realized that silence helps injustice grow. Speaking up is difficult, but it is necessary. He decided he would not accept a life of fear. He saw how laws were used to control black people. Police used violence to enforce apartheid. Protests were punished. Voices were silenced. This showed him that injustice was supported by power. And power must be challenged with courage. Nelson Mandela believed racism damages everyone. It hurts those who suffer from it. And it also harms those who support it. He believed no one is born hating another person. Hate is learned. And what is learned can be unlearned. This realization changed his life. He understood that his education had a purpose. It was not just for personal success. It was to help others. It was to fight injustice. Discovering racism was painful. But it gave Nelson Mandela a mission. A mission to stand for equality. A mission to bring dignity to all people. This moment marked the beginning of his long journey toward freedom and justice. Standing up against apartheid. Standing up against apartheid was one of the bravest decisions in the life of Nelson Mandela. Apartheid was a cruel system. Controlled people by race. Black people had no real freedom. They could not vote. They could not choose where to live. They could not live with dignity. Nelson Mandela knew that apartheid was wrong. First, he believed change could happen peacefully. He joined the African National Congress, also known as the ANC. This group worked to protect the rights of black people. They organized meetings and peaceful protests. They believed in dialogue and fairness. As a young lawyer, Nelson Mandela helped black citizens. He defended people who were treated unfairly by the law. He listened to their pain. He saw their fear. This made his desire to fight apartheid even stronger. The government did not like his actions. Peaceful protests were banned. Leaders were watched closely. People were arrested for speaking the truth. Many protesters were beaten or killed. This showed that peaceful methods were being crushed. Nelson Mandela faced a hard decision. Should he remain silent to stay safe? Or should he continue the fight, even if it was dangerous? He chose courage. He believed freedom was worth the risk. When peaceful resistance failed, Mandela believed stronger action was needed. He helped form a group that focused on resistance against government property. Their goal was not to harm people. Their goal was to send a message. They wanted the government to listen. This decision was not easy. Mandela knew the consequences would be serious. He knew prison or death was possible. But he believed doing nothing was worse. He believed injustice grows when good people stay quiet. Soon the government arrested him. He was accused of fighting the state. He stood in court with confidence. He spoke words that shocked the world. He said he was ready to die for freedom and equality. These words showed his courage and belief. Standing up against apartheid cost him his freedom. He was sent to prison for many years. But even in prison, his voice did not disappear. His ideas spread across the world. People began to listen. People began to care. Nelson Mandela's stand against apartheid teaches a powerful lesson. Change is never easy. Justice often requires sacrifice. Fear is natural, but courage is stronger. He showed that standing for truth matters. Even when the price is high. Even when the road is long. His bravery helped end apartheid. And his actions changed history forever. Arrest, trial, and life in prison. The arrest, trial, and prison life of Nelson Mandela was one of the hardest periods of his life. Tested his strength, patience, and faith. But it also showed the power of the human spirit. Because Nelson Mandela stood against apartheid, The government saw him as a threat. They watched his movements closely. They followed him everywhere. In 1962, he was finally arrested. He was accused of leaving the country illegally and speaking against the government. Later, more serious charges were added. Nelson Mandela was put on trial with other freedom fighters. This trial became famous around the world. It was known as the Rivonia trial. The government wanted to silence them forever. They asked for the death penalty. During the trial, Nelson Mandela spoke bravely. He did not beg for mercy. He did not show fear. He spoke about freedom, equality, and justice. He said he had fought against white domination. He also fought against black domination. He said he believed all people should live together in peace. He ended by saying he was ready to die for this ideal. The court did not give him the death penalty, but he was sentenced to life in prison. This meant he might never be free again. He was sent to Robben Island. This prison was cold and harsh. Life in prison was extremely difficult. Nelson Mandela lived in a small cell. There was very little light. He slept on a hard floor. Food was poor. Prisoners were treated badly. They were forced to do hard labor like breaking stones. He was separated from his family. He could not see his children grow up. He could not attend family events. This caused deep pain. But he did not allow sadness to destroy him. Instead, he chose strength. He kept his mind active. He read books whenever possible. He studied law and history. He discussed ideas with other prisoners. They called the prison a university. They learned from each other every day. Even in prison, Nelson Mandela showed leadership. He treated guards with respect. He spoke calmly even when insulted. Slowly, some guards began to respect him. He believed anger would only create more suffering. Years passed. Then decades passed. 27 long years went by. The world outside began to change. People across the globe spoke his name. They demanded his freedom. Prison could lock his body, but it could not lock his ideas. It could not lock his hope. Nelson Mandela's prison life teaches us a powerful lesson. Hard times do not define you. Your choices do. Even in the darkest place, you can choose dignity, patience, and courage. Strength, patience, and hope behind bars. The years behind bars revealed the true strength of Nelson Mandela. Prison life was not only a physical punishment. It was also meant to break his spirit. But it failed. Every day in prison tested his patience. The rules were strict and unfair. Prisoners were treated differently by race. Black prisoners received worse food. They were given harder work. They were spoken to with anger and disrespect. Nelson Mandela felt the pain of this deeply. But he refused to become bitter. He believed anger would destroy him from inside. So he chose calmness. He chose self-control. He reminded himself that prison was temporary. His values were permanent. Strength for Nelson Mandela did not mean violence. It meant discipline. It meant controlling his emotions. It meant standing tall without shouting. When guards insulted him, he stayed silent. When rules were unfair, he responded with dignity. Patience became his greatest weapon. Days in prison were long and slow. Years passed with little change. Many prisoners lost hope. Some became angry. Some became weak. But Mandela waited. He understood that real change takes time. He also learned to listen. He listened to fellow prisoners. He listened to guards. He tried to understand their fears. He believed understanding could open doors. This made him powerful even without freedom. Education kept his hope alive. He read books whenever he could. He studied history and law. He discussed ideas with other prisoners. They taught each other lessons. Prison became a place of learning, not just suffering. Nelson Mandela also used hope as strength. He believed apartheid would end, even when there was no sign of it. He believed future generations would be free. This belief kept him alive. He wrote letters to his family. He missed his children deeply. He missed simple things, like walking freely, like watching the sunset without bars. But he did not allow sadness to control him. Over time, even prison guards noticed his character. They saw his calm behavior. They saw his respect for others. Some began to speak to him differently. Some began to listen. This proved that kindness can soften hearts. Behind bars, Nelson Mandela grew stronger. His body aged, but his mind became sharper. His heart became wiser. His hope became unbreakable. His prison years teach us something powerful. True strength is quiet. Patience can defeat cruelty. Hope can survive even in darkness. And no prison is strong enough to lock a determined spirit. Freedom after 27 years in prison. Freedom after 27 years in prison was a historic and emotional moment in the life of Nelson Mandela. For nearly 3 decades, he lived behind walls and iron bars. Many people thought he would never walk free again. But on February 11, 1990, the impossible happened. When Nelson Mandela stepped out of prison, the world was watching. People gathered in large crowds. Millions watched on television. Some cried with joy. Some could not believe their eyes. A man imprisoned for so long was finally free. His body was older and slower, but his spirit was strong and calm. He walked with dignity. He raised his fist in the air. That moment became a symbol of hope, not just for South Africa, but for the whole world. Freedom did not come easily. Years of protests, pressure, and global support helped make it possible. People around the world demanded his release. They believed his imprisonment was unjust. Slowly, the apartheid system began to weaken. When Nelson Mandela was released, many expected anger. Many expected revenge. After all, he had lost 27 years of his life. He missed his children growing up. He missed family moments. He lost his youth. But instead of hate, he spoke of peace. Instead of revenge, he spoke of forgiveness. He said the time had come to heal the nation. He said freedom was not only for him. It was for everyone. This surprised many people. But it showed his greatness. He understood something very important. True freedom means freeing the heart from hatred. He believed anger would destroy the future. Forgiveness would build it. After his release, Nelson Mandela did not rest. He did not enjoy a quiet life. He immediately returned to the struggle. But now his struggle was different. It was about unity. It was about peace talks. It was about building a new South Africa. He met with former enemies. He spoke calmly. He listened carefully. He believed talking was better than fighting. This approach helped prevent violence. It helped save many lives. For ordinary people, his freedom brought hope. It showed that patience can win. It showed that justice may be delayed, but not denied. It showed that one person's courage can change history. Nelson Mandela's release was not just the opening of a prison gate. It was the opening of a new chapter. A chapter of hope, reconciliation, and change. His freedom reminds us of an important lesson. Dark times do not last forever. If you stay strong, patient, and hopeful, freedom will come. Becoming the first Black president of South Africa. Becoming the first Black president of South Africa was one of the greatest moments in the life of Nelson Mandela. It was not just a personal victory. It was a victory for millions of people who had suffered under apartheid. It marked the birth of a new nation. After his release from prison, South Africa was still divided. There was fear, anger, and mistrust. Many people worried the country would fall into violence. The wounds of apartheid were deep. But Nelson Mandela believed unity was possible. He worked closely with leaders from all sides, even those who once supported apartheid. This was not easy. Many people questioned his choice to talk to former enemies. But Mandela believed peace begins with dialogue. He knew revenge would only bring more pain. In 1994, South Africa held its first democratic election. For the first time, people of all races could vote. Long lines formed across the country. People waited for hours. Some cried as they voted. They knew history was being made. Nelson Mandela won the election. At the age of 75, he became the first Black president of South Africa. The world celebrated this moment. It showed that change was possible without hatred. As president, Mandela led with humility. He did not act like a ruler. He acted like a servant of the people. He listened more than he spoke. He respected all citizens regardless of race. One of his greatest goals was reconciliation. He wanted to heal the nation. He encouraged forgiveness between communities. He supported truth and understanding instead of revenge. He believed facing the past was the only way to move forward. Mandela also focused on building a fair society. He worked to improve education. He supported better health care. He wanted equal opportunities for everyone. He knew change would take time. But he was patient. Even as president, he lived simply. He avoided luxury. He remained humble. He believed leadership was about responsibility, not power. Nelson Mandela served only one term as president. He could have stayed longer. People loved him. But he believed in democracy. He believed leaders must make space for others. His presidency sent a powerful message to the world. A nation can rise from injustice. A leader can choose peace over revenge. A past of pain does not have to control the future. Becoming president was the result of a lifetime of sacrifice. Mandela's journey showed that true leadership comes from character. Not force, not fear, but courage, wisdom, and compassion. Nelson Mandela's legacy and lessons for life. The legacy of Nelson Mandela lives far beyond his lifetime. He was not only a president or a freedom fighter. He was a teacher for the whole world. His life offers lessons that are simple to understand. yet very powerful. One of the greatest lessons from Nelson Mandela is forgiveness. He spent 27 years in prison. He was treated unfairly. He lost precious time with his family. Still, when he became free, he chose peace. He chose to forgive those who hurt him. This shows true strength. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means choosing healing over hatred. Another important lesson is patience. Mandela waited many years for freedom. He did not give up hope. He believed justice would come, even when the world felt silent. His patience teaches us that good things take time. Success does not come overnight. Nelson Mandela also taught the power of education. He believed learning opens the mind, helps people think clearly, helps them understand others. Education helped him become a leader. He used knowledge to fight injustice. This lesson is important for young people everywhere. Courage is another key part of his legacy. Mandela was not fearless. He felt fear like everyone else. But he did not let fear control him. He stood up for what was right, even when it was dangerous, even when prison was the price. He also showed that leadership is about service. As president, he lived simply. He listened to people. He respected different opinions. He believed leaders should unite, not divide. This kind of leadership is rare, but it is deeply needed. Nelson Mandela believed in equality. He believed no one is born to hate. Hate is learned, and it can be unlearned. This message is important in today's world, a world still facing division and conflict. His legacy also teaches resilience. Life tested him again and again, but he never lost his values. He never lost hope. He showed that hard times can build strong character. Nelson Mandela's life reminds us that one person can make a difference. You do not need power to start. You need courage. You need patience. You need belief in justice. His story continues to inspire millions. Students, teachers, leaders, ordinary people. The lessons from his life are clear. Choose forgiveness over hatred. Choose patience over anger. Choose courage over fear. And always believe that a better world is possible. That is the true legacy of Nelson Mandela.